Welcome back to the channel. What if I told you that a simple, ordinary-looking 1946 1-cent wheat penny, something you might ignore in your pocket, toss into a jar, or even drop on the street without a second thought, could secretly be worth up to $41 million? And the most shocking part is that a few of these coins might still be out there in everyday circulation, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice the tiny detail that turns a common coin into a life-changing treasure. And right now you might be wondering how that's even possible, how a coin made in the millions could ever reach such an unimaginable value. But the truth is far more fascinating than you think, because not all coins are created equal, and the story of the 1946 wheat penny begins at a very unique moment in American history, just after World War II. When the United States Mint resumed normal coin production following years of wartime metal shortages, and billions of pennies were struck to meet economic demand, flooding the country with what appeared to be completely ordinary currency, yet hidden among those millions were a handful of anomalies. Tiny minting mistakes, subtle variations, and rare production quirks that would later become some of the most sought-after treasures in the world of coin collecting. And this is where the mystery begins to unfold, because collectors aren't just paying for metal. They're paying for rarity, for history, for the story behind a coin, and when a coin like the 1946 wheat penny carries a rare error or an unusual characteristic, its value can skyrocket beyond anything most people could ever imagine. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Some of these rare coins were never officially documented, meaning they could still be sitting unnoticed in someone's drawer, passed down in a family collection, or mixed in with loose change at a local shop. And that possibility is what fuels the obsession, the hunt, and the dream that anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon a fortune without even realizing it. And to truly understand why this coin can reach such extreme value, you have to look closely at how coins are made, because during the minting process, blank metal discs called planchets are fed into high-speed presses where dies stamp the coin's design onto both sides, and when everything works perfectly, the result is a standard coin identical to millions of others. But when something goes slightly wrong, when a die shifts, when a planchet is misaligned, or when the metal itself has imperfections, the result can be a one-of-a-kind error coin, and these errors are where the magic happens, because collectors value uniqueness above all else, and a rare minting error transforms an ordinary penny into a historical artifact that cannot be replicated. For example, an off-center strike occurs when the planchet is not properly aligned under the die, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted, and while minor off-center errors are relatively common, extreme ones that still show the full date and mint mark can be incredibly valuable, especially when they occur on older coins like the 1946 wheat penny. Then there's doubling, also known as a double die error, which happens during the die creation process when the design is imprinted more than once at slightly different angles, creating a noticeable doubling effect on letters or numbers. And these errors are highly prized because they originate from the die itself, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the same feature, but only a limited number are ever produced before the error is discovered and corrected, making surviving examples extremely rare. And then there are planchet flaws, which can include cracks, laminations, or even the use of the wrong metal composition, and these errors add another layer of uniqueness to a coin, turning it into something that stands out dramatically from the rest. And when you combine these factors with the historical significance of the post-war era, the demand from collectors, and the sheer scarcity of high-grade preserved examples, you begin to see how a seemingly insignificant penny could reach astronomical values. But the real intrigue lies in the stories of discovery, because over the years there have been countless reports of people finding valuable coins in the most unexpected places, from old piggy banks and inherited collections to loose change received at a grocery store. And each of these stories adds to the legend, reinforcing the idea that hidden treasures are still out there waiting to be found. And imagine the moment when someone casually examines a coin, perhaps out of curiosity, and suddenly notices something unusual, a slight misalignment, a strange doubling in the lettering, or an odd texture in the metal. And that moment of realization begins a journey that could lead to authentication, appraisal, and potentially a life-changing payout. And this is why the 1946 wheat penny continues to capture attention worldwide, because it represents more than just money. It represents possibility, the thrill of the unknown, and the idea that something extraordinary can be hidden within the ordinary. And as collectors continue to search, study, and trade these coins, the market value continues to evolve, driven by demand, rarity, and the stories that surround each unique piece. And while not every 1946 penny is worth millions, the existence of even a few extremely rare examples is enough to keep the dream alive, encouraging people to check their change, revisit old collections, and look more closely at the coins they once overlooked, because the difference between a 1-cent coin and a multi-million-dollar treasure can come down to the smallest detail, a tiny flaw, or a subtle variation that most people would never notice. And that's what makes this story so powerful, so compelling, and so difficult to ignore, because right now, somewhere in the world, there could be a 1946 wheat penny sitting quietly, unrecognized, waiting for someone to discover its true value, and that possibility creates an irresistible sense of curiosity, a need to keep searching, to keep looking, to keep asking what if. Because what if the next coin you pick up isn't just spare change? What if it's a hidden fortune? What if it's the one that changes everything? And as you think about that, consider how many coins pass through your hands every day, how many you've ignored, how many you've never examined closely, and how easily a rare piece could slip by unnoticed. And that's exactly why collectors emphasize careful inspection, why they study mint marks, analyze strike quality, and use magnification tools to uncover details invisible to the naked eye, because within those details lies the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. And the 1946 wheat penny stands as a perfect example of that hidden potential, a reminder that value isn't always obvious, that rarity can be disguised, and that sometimes the most incredible treasures are the ones hiding in plain sight. And as this story continues to spread, inspiring more people to check their coins and explore the world of numismatics, the legend of the $41 million penny grows stronger, fueling curiosity and excitement across generations. And whether you're a seasoned collector or someone who has never paid attention to coins before, this story invites you to look closer, to question what you see, and to consider the possibility that something as simple as a penny could hold unimaginable value. And if that thought doesn't make you want to check your pocket right now, then consider this. Every rare coin that has ever been discovered was once overlooked, dismissed, or ignored, until someone took a second look, and that second look made all the difference. So before you move on, before you forget about the coins in your drawer or the change in your wallet, take a moment to examine them carefully, because you never know what you might find. And if this story sparked your curiosity and made you see everyday coins in a completely new way, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more hidden coin treasure stories that could change the way you look at money forever. Next, 1945 1-cent wheat penny. Imagine picking up a dusty old coin from a forgotten drawer, barely giving it a second glance, only to discover that the small copper piece resting in your palm, a 1945 1-cent wheat penny, could be worth as much as $39 million, a number so staggering it feels unreal. And yet this possibility has fueled one of the most fascinating treasure hunts in modern history, because hidden among billions of ordinary coins are a few extraordinary survivors, pieces so rare, so unique, that collectors around the world are willing to pay unimaginable sums just to own them. And right now the question quietly forms in your mind, could one of these valuable pennies already be in your possession without you even knowing it? Because the truth is far stranger than fiction, and the story behind the 1945 wheat penny is layered with history, mystery, and the kind of rare minting secrets that turn everyday currency into legendary treasure. And to truly understand why this coin has reached such astonishing value, you have to go back to the final year of World War II, a time when the United States was still deeply affected by wartime production demands, when metals like copper were considered essential for military equipment, ammunition, and communication wiring, which forced the U.S. Mint to make unusual decisions about coin production, including the famous 1943 steel pennies. But by 1945 copper had returned to circulation for penny production, though not without complications, because the transition between materials, combined with the pressure of mass production, created the perfect environment for minting anomalies. And it's within these anomalies that the seeds of extreme value were planted, because while millions of 1945 wheat pennies were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, only a tiny fraction carried the rare characteristics that collectors obsess over today, and these characteristics are not always obvious at first glance. Which is why so many valuable coins go unnoticed for years, sometimes decades, quietly passing from hand to hand as ordinary change, and this is where the suspense deepens, because the difference between a 1-cent coin and a multi-million-dollar artifact can come down to microscopic details, subtle shifts in design, or errors that occurred in fractions of a second during the minting process. And once you understand how those errors happen, the entire concept of coin collecting transforms from a simple hobby into a high-stakes treasure hunt, because during minting, blank planchets are fed into powerful presses where engraved dies strike the design onto the metal with immense force. But these machines are not infallible, and when something goes wrong, when a die is misaligned, when a planchet is improperly prepared, or when the metal itself carries impurities, the result can be a coin unlike any other, and these imperfections, far from reducing a coin's value, can elevate it to legendary status, because rarity is the ultimate currency in the world of collectors, and the rarer the error, the higher the demand, and the 1945 wheat penny is particularly fascinating because it exists at a crossroads of history and production, making it a prime candidate for unusual variations, including double die errors where the design appears duplicated due to a misalignment during die creation, and these errors can often be seen in the lettering or date, creating a ghost-like effect that immediately signals something special to a trained eye. And then there are off-center strikes, where the coin design is shifted away from the center, sometimes dramatically, leaving a portion of the planchet blank, and while minor off-center errors are relatively common, extreme examples that still display the full date and mint mark are exceptionally rare and highly prized, and perhaps even more intriguing are planchet errors, which occur before the coin is even struck, involving defects in the metal itself such as cracks, laminations, or the use of an incorrect alloy, and in rare cases, coins have been discovered that were struck on leftover planchets from previous years or experimental compositions, creating unique hybrids that defy expectations. And it's these kinds of anomalies that can push the value of a 1945 wheat penny into the realm of millions. Because each one tells a story that cannot be replicated, a moment in time when something went slightly wrong and created something extraordinarily right, and as collectors search tirelessly for these hidden gems, the stories of discovery continue to add fuel to the legend, because time and again, valuable coins have been found in the most unlikely places, tucked away in old jars, hidden in inherited collections, or even received as change during everyday transactions, and each discovery reinforces the idea that these treasures are still out there, waiting to be found, and imagine the thrill of realizing that a coin you've had for years might be worth more than you ever dreamed, the sudden rush of curiosity, the careful inspection under magnification, the search for telltale signs of rarity, and the moment when everything clicks into place, transforming a simple penny into a life-changing asset. And this emotional journey is what makes coin collecting so captivating, because it combines history, science, and the thrill of discovery into a single experience, and the 1945 wheat penny stands as one of the most compelling examples of this phenomenon, a coin that bridges the gap between the ordinary and the extraordinary, reminding us that value is not always visible, that rarity can hide in plain sight, and that sometimes the smallest objects can hold the greatest potential. And as the market for rare coins continues to grow, driven by passionate collectors and investors alike, the demand for unique pieces only increases, pushing prices higher and turning once overlooked coins into headline-making treasures. And while not every 1945 penny will be worth millions, the existence of even a handful of ultra-rare examples is enough to keep the dream alive, encouraging people everywhere to take a closer look at their change, to question what they see, and to consider the possibility that something incredible might be hiding just beneath the surface. Because the truth is that every valuable coin was once considered ordinary, until someone recognized its uniqueness, and that recognition is what separates those who discover hidden fortunes from those who unknowingly pass them by. And as you think about the coins in your own possession, consider how easily a rare piece could blend in with the rest, how a tiny detail could go unnoticed, and how a simple act of curiosity could change everything, because somewhere out there, another 1945 wheat penny with extraordinary value could still be waiting to be discovered. Quietly circulating through the world, overlooked and underestimated. And the only question that remains is whether you will be the one to find it, whether you will take that second look, whether you will notice what others have missed, and whether that small copper coin could become the key to a story that transforms your life forever. And if this idea sparks even the slightest curiosity, if it makes you wonder about the hidden potential in the coins you encounter every day, then don't ignore that feeling. Because curiosity is where every great discovery begins. And the next time you come across a 1945 wheat penny, remember that it might not be just another coin, it might be a piece of history, a rare anomaly, a collector's dream, and possibly a fortune waiting to be uncovered. So keep your eyes open, keep searching, and if this story has changed the way you see ordinary coins, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories about hidden treasures that could be closer than you think. Next, 1929 1-cent wheat penny. What if the next time you casually glance at an old coin, maybe one tucked away in a jar, buried in a drawer, or passed down from a relative, you unknowingly hold a 1929 1-cent wheat penny that could be worth as much as $43 million, a number so extreme it almost sounds fictional. Yet in the world of rare coins, this kind of hidden value has turned ordinary people into overnight millionaires. And the most unsettling part is that coins like this don't always announce themselves with obvious signs. They blend in, they look worn, common, forgettable, and that's exactly why so many of them slip through unnoticed, which leads to a question that keeps collectors constantly searching. How many of these rare pennies are still out there, quietly circulating, waiting for someone to recognize what others have missed? Because the story of the 1929 wheat penny is not just about money. It's about timing, history, minting quirks, and the unpredictable nature of manufacturing errors that can transform a simple copper coin into one of the most valuable objects on Earth. And to understand why this particular penny carries such staggering potential, you have to go back to 1929, a year that marked the beginning of one of the most turbulent economic periods in American history, the Great Depression. When uncertainty gripped the nation and everyday currency played a critical role in survival, millions of pennies were produced across different mints, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each facility operating under intense pressure to maintain production efficiency. Yet in that pressure lies the origin of rarity, because high-speed minting combined with evolving equipment and human oversight created the perfect conditions for subtle but significant mistakes, and those mistakes are what collectors hunt for today, not the ordinary coins, but the anomalies, the outliers, the pieces that shouldn't exist in the form they do. And this is where curiosity begins to build, because at first glance, a 1929 wheat penny looks no different from countless others. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the iconic wheat stalk design on the back, a design that symbolizes a simpler era of American coinage. But hidden within some of these coins are features so rare that they elevate their value into the millions. And one of the most important factors is the mint mark, a tiny letter that indicates where the coin was produced, because certain mint locations had lower production numbers, making their coins inherently rarer. But even within those lower mintages, only a fraction survive in high condition today, and condition itself is another critical factor, because coins that remain in near-perfect state after nearly a century are incredibly scarce. And collectors are willing to pay enormous premiums for such preservation, yet condition alone does not explain a $43 million valuation. Because the true driving force behind such extreme prices is the presence of unique minting errors. And this is where the story becomes even more fascinating, because errors are not supposed to happen, yet they do. And when they do, they create coins that defy the standard expectations of mass production. For instance, a double die error can occur during the creation of the coin's die when the design is impressed multiple times at slightly different angles, resulting in a visible doubling effect on letters or numbers. And while some double dies are subtle, others are dramatic enough to be seen with the naked eye, instantly signaling that the coin is something special. And then there are off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted, and while minor misalignments are relatively common, extreme examples that retain key details such as the date are incredibly rare and highly sought after. And perhaps even more intriguing are planchet errors, which occur before the coin is struck, involving defects in the metal blank itself, such as cracks, laminations, or incorrect compositions, and in rare cases, coins have been struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign currency, creating one-of-a-kind pieces that attract intense interest from collectors. And when you combine these types of errors with the historical significance of a 1929 penny, the limited number of surviving examples, and the ever-growing demand from collectors worldwide, you begin to see how the value can escalate to extraordinary levels. But the real mystery lies in the fact that not all of these rare coins have been discovered, because history has shown that valuable coins often surface in the most unexpected places, sometimes decades after they were minted, and these discoveries fuel the imagination, reinforcing the idea that hidden treasures are still out there, waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for. And imagine the moment when an ordinary person, perhaps someone with no prior knowledge of coin collecting, stumbles upon a 1929 wheat penny and notices something unusual, maybe a slight doubling in the lettering, an odd alignment, or an unexpected texture, and that moment of curiosity leads to further investigation, authentication, and ultimately the realization that they are holding something incredibly valuable, a moment that transforms an everyday object into a life-changing discovery. And this emotional element is what makes the story so compelling, because it's not just about coins, it's about possibility, the idea that something extraordinary can emerge from the most ordinary circumstances. And as collectors continue their search, studying coins under magnification, comparing details, and analyzing historical records, the legend of the 1929 wheat penny continues to grow, driven by both documented discoveries and the tantalizing possibility of those yet to be found. And every time a new rare coin is uncovered, it adds another layer to the narrative, another reason for people to check their change, revisit old collections, and pay closer attention to the small details that often go unnoticed, because in the world of rare coins, those small details are everything. They are the difference between a coin worth a single cent and one worth millions. And as you consider this, think about how many coins you have handled over the years, how many you have overlooked, and how easily a rare piece could have passed through your hands without you realizing its true value. And that thought alone is enough to spark curiosity, to make you wonder what might still be out there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to take a closer look. And that is the enduring appeal of the 1929 wheat penny, a coin that embodies the intersection of history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery, a reminder that value is not always obvious, that treasures can be disguised, and that sometimes the smallest objects hold the greatest potential. And as the market for rare coins continues to expand, fueled by passionate collectors and investors, the demand for unique pieces only intensifies, pushing prices higher and turning once overlooked coins into prized possessions. And while not every 1929 penny will be worth millions, the existence of even a few extraordinary examples is enough to keep the dream alive, encouraging people everywhere to search, to question, and to explore the hidden stories behind the coins they encounter every day, because the next great discovery could be closer than you think. It could be in your pocket, your drawer, or your collection, quietly waiting for you to notice what others have missed. And if that possibility excites you even a little, if it makes you look at coins differently, then you're already part of the journey. Because every great discovery begins with curiosity, and the only thing standing between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary treasure is the willingness to take a closer look. So before you dismiss that old penny as just spare change, remember the story of the 1929 wheat penny and the millions it could be worth. And if this story has opened your eyes to the hidden value around you, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories of hidden coin treasures that could change your life in an instant. Next, 1917 1-cent wheat penny. What if one of the oldest coins you might overlook without a second thought, a worn, copper-colored 1917 1-cent wheat penny, could secretly be worth up to $45 million, a figure so unbelievable it sounds like a myth? Yet stories like this are exactly what keep collectors searching through jars of coins, old boxes, and forgotten family collections. because hidden within what appears to be ordinary pocket change are a few extraordinary pieces that defy all expectations. And right now the thought begins to settle in your mind that maybe, just maybe, one of these rare coins could already be in your possession, quietly waiting to be discovered. And the truth is that the story of the 1917 wheat penny is not just about age or metal, it's about a perfect combination of history, rarity, minting anomalies, and collector obsession that transforms a simple 1-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And to fully understand how this is possible, you have to go back more than a century to a time when the United States Mint was still refining its processes, when coin production relied heavily on mechanical precision but was far from perfect, and when small errors could slip through unnoticed, creating coins that would later become some of the rarest and most valuable in existence. And the 1917 wheat penny was produced during a period of significant economic and industrial change, when demand for currency was rising and the mint was pushing its equipment to keep up, and in that environment, even the smallest misalignment, the slightest imperfection in a die, or a flaw in a metal planchet could result in a coin that stood apart from the rest, though at the time no one would have realized its future significance, because to the people using these coins in everyday transactions, they were simply money, nothing more, nothing less, and yet over time, as coins were lost, damaged, melted down, or worn away through circulation, the surviving examples became fewer and fewer, and among those survivors, the ones with unique characteristics became extraordinarily rare, and rarity is the foundation of value in the world of coin collecting, because when something is both scarce and desirable, its worth can increase dramatically, especially when collectors are willing to compete for ownership. And the 1917 wheat penny holds a special place in this landscape because it represents an early era of Lincoln cent production, combined with the possibility of rare minting errors that can elevate its value to astonishing levels. And this is where the story becomes truly fascinating, because not all 1917 pennies are valuable. In fact, most are worth only a small amount above face value, but hidden among them are a few exceptional pieces that carry characteristics so rare that they are considered once-in-a-lifetime finds. And these characteristics often come in the form of minting errors, which occur during the complex process of coin production, when blank metal discs called planchets are struck by engraved dies under immense pressure. And while this process is designed to produce uniform coins, it is not immune to failure. And when something goes wrong, the result can be a coin that is unlike any other. For example, a double die error can occur when the die used to strike the coin is created with a slight misalignment, causing the design to appear doubled on the finished coin, and this doubling can sometimes be seen in the date, the lettering, or other design elements, making the coin instantly recognizable to collectors who know what to look for. And then there are off-center strikes, where the planchet is not properly aligned within the press, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing or shifted to one side. And while minor off-center errors are relatively common, dramatic examples that still show the full date are extremely rare and highly sought after, and perhaps even more intriguing are planchet errors, which occur before the coin is struck, involving defects in the metal itself, such as cracks, laminations, or variations in composition, and in rare cases, coins have been struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even different countries, creating unique pieces that are highly prized by collectors. And when you combine these types of errors with the historical significance of a 1917 coin, the limited number of surviving high-grade examples, and the intense demand from collectors around the world, you begin to see how the value can reach extraordinary heights. But the real mystery lies in the fact that not all of these rare coins have been discovered, because history has shown that valuable coins often remain hidden for decades, sometimes even generations, before finally being recognized for what they are, and these discoveries often happen in the most unexpected ways. Someone cleaning out an old house, sorting through inherited belongings, or simply examining their pocket change more closely than usual. And in those moments, an ordinary coin can suddenly reveal itself to be something far more valuable, and that moment of realization is what drives the fascination with coins like the 1917 wheat penny, because it represents the possibility that incredible value can be hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice. And imagine the excitement of discovering such a coin, the disbelief, the careful examination, the research, and finally, the confirmation that what you have found is indeed rare and valuable, a discovery that could change your life in an instant. And this emotional element is what makes the story so compelling, because it's not just about money, it's about the thrill of discovery, the idea that something extraordinary can emerge from the most ordinary circumstances. And as collectors continue to search for these hidden treasures, the legend of the 1917 wheat penny continues to grow, fueled by stories of rare finds and the ever-present possibility that more are still out there. And every time a new example is discovered, it adds to the intrigue, encouraging more people to look closely at their coins and to consider the possibility that they might be holding something special. And as you think about the coins you encounter every day, consider how easily a rare piece could go unnoticed, how a small detail could be overlooked, and how a simple act of curiosity could lead to an extraordinary discovery. Because in the world of rare coins, the smallest differences can have the greatest impact, and the 1917 wheat penny is a perfect example of this principle, a coin that appears ordinary but has the potential to be anything but. And as the demand for rare coins continues to grow, driven by collectors and investors alike, the value of these unique pieces only increases, turning what was once everyday currency into highly sought-after treasures. And while not every 1917 penny will be worth millions, the existence of even a few extraordinary examples is enough to keep the dream alive, encouraging people to search, to question, and to look beyond the surface. Because the next great discovery could be closer than you think. It could be in your pocket, your collection, or a forgotten jar of coins, quietly waiting for you to notice what others have missed. And that is the enduring appeal of the 1917 wheat penny. A symbol of hidden value, a reminder that rarity can exist where you least expect it, and an invitation to explore the world of coins with a new sense of curiosity. And if this story has made you look at your coins differently, if it has sparked even a small desire to search for hidden treasures, then don't ignore that feeling, because every great discovery begins with a single moment of curiosity. And the next time you come across a 1917 wheat penny, take a closer look. Because it might not just be a coin, it might be a story, a mystery, and possibly a fortune waiting to be uncovered. And as the story stretches even further, the mystery surrounding the 1917 wheat penny becomes almost impossible to ignore, because what makes this coin truly captivating is not just the possibility that one rare example could be worth $45 million, but the unsettling reality that many people may have already handled such coins without ever realizing their significance. And that idea creates a powerful sense of urgency, a need to go back and recheck every old coin, every forgotten collection, every jar sitting quietly on a shelf, because within those ordinary spaces could lie something extraordinary. And as collectors continue to analyze surviving examples of the 1917 wheat penny, they have uncovered patterns that suggest certain rare varieties were produced under very specific conditions that may have only existed for a short period of time before being corrected. Meaning that only a handful of coins carry those unique characteristics. And this is where the concept of die states becomes important, because as dies were used repeatedly, they would wear down, crack, or develop small imperfections, and coins struck at different stages of a die's life can exhibit distinct features that help experts trace their origin, and in some cases, late-stage die cracks or dramatic cuts can make a coin instantly recognizable as part of an extremely limited group, increasing its desirability among collectors who specialize in such varieties. And then there is the question of preservation, because even if a rare coin was produced, its journey through time determines whether it survives in a condition that maximizes its value, and coins that avoided heavy circulation, that were stored carefully or forgotten in protected environments, often retained sharp details, original luster, and minimal wear, qualities that can multiply their value many times over. And when you combine rarity with exceptional condition, the result is a coin that becomes the centerpiece of major auctions, attracting attention from elite collectors, investors, and institutions, all competing for the chance to own a piece of history that cannot be replaced. And this competitive demand is what drives prices into the millions, because in a market where only one or two examples of a particular variety may exist, the value is determined not just by the coin itself but by the intensity of desire among those who want it. And as you begin to understand this dynamic, the idea of a 1917 wheat penny reaching $45 million starts to feel less like an exaggeration and more like the natural outcome of extreme rarity combined with passionate demand. But even with all this knowledge, the most intriguing aspect remains the possibility that undiscovered examples are still out there, because history has repeatedly shown that rare coins can remain hidden for decades, sometimes surfacing in the most unexpected places, and each new discovery reignites the excitement, proving that the search is far from over. And imagine the ripple effect of such a discovery: the headlines, the attention, the sudden realization that something so small could carry such immense value, and the way it would inspire countless others to begin their own search, to examine their coins more closely, to learn about minting errors and rare varieties, and to see everyday objects in a completely new light. And this transformation in perspective is one of the most powerful aspects of coin collecting, because it turns the ordinary into the extraordinary, the overlooked into the sought after, and the forgotten into the invaluable. And as you think about this, it becomes clear that the story of the 1917 wheat penny is not just about a single coin or even a specific value. It is about the broader idea that hidden potential exists all around us, waiting to be discovered by those who are willing to look beyond the surface. And that idea resonates far beyond the world of coins, serving as a reminder that opportunity often hides in plain sight, disguised as something ordinary, and that recognizing it requires curiosity, attention, and a willingness to question what others might take for granted. And in the context of coin collecting, this means examining details that most people would never notice: the spacing of letters, the alignment of the design, the texture of the metal, the presence of subtle doubling or unusual marks, each of which could be a clue pointing to something rare and valuable. And as you develop this mindset, every coin becomes a potential discovery, every detail becomes significant, and every moment of curiosity becomes an opportunity. And this is what keeps collectors engaged year after year, constantly searching, constantly learning, constantly refining their ability to the rare among the common. And while the odds of finding a $45 million coin may be incredibly small, they are not zero, and that single fact is enough to sustain the excitement, to keep the search alive, and to inspire new generations of collectors to join the hunt. And as the legend of the 1917 wheat penny continues to grow, it serves as both a challenge and an invitation: a challenge to look closer, to question assumptions, and to seek out the hidden stories behind everyday objects, and an invitation to become part of a global community united by curiosity and the pursuit of discovery. And whether or not you ever find a rare coin of your own, the act of searching itself becomes a rewarding experience, a journey into history, craftsmanship, and the unexpected ways in which value can be created and preserved. And so the next time you come across a 1917 wheat penny, or any old coin for that matter, don't rush past it, don't dismiss it as insignificant. Take a moment to examine it, to consider its history, to look for the small details that might reveal something extraordinary, because in that moment, you are engaging with a story that spans more than a century, a story of production, error, survival, and discovery. And you never know where that story might lead, because the next great find could be closer than you think, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice. And just when it feels like every possibility has been explored, another layer of intrigue begins to emerge, because the deeper collectors dive into the 1917 wheat penny, the more they realize that its true story is still unfolding, shaped not only by what has already been discovered but by what remains hidden. And this uncertainty is what gives the coin its almost mythical status. Because unlike modern collectibles that are tracked, cataloged, and instantly recognized, coins from this era still carry secrets, still hold variations that may not yet be fully understood, and that means the ceiling of their value is not fixed. It evolves with every new discovery, every auction, every expert analysis that uncovers something previously overlooked, and this constant evolution creates a sense of momentum, a feeling that something big could happen at any moment, that somewhere someone might be on the verge of finding a 1917 wheat penny with a combination of features so rare that it redefines what collectors thought was possible, and that possibility alone is enough to keep the search alive across generations, because it transforms coin collecting from a passive hobby into an active pursuit of hidden history, where each coin becomes a clue, a fragment of a much larger puzzle waiting to be assembled, and as this pursuit continues, one of the most fascinating aspects that emerges is the role of microscopic detail, because many of the features that distinguish an ordinary coin from an extraordinary one are not visible at a glance. They require magnification, patience, and a trained eye, and this is where modern technology has begun to intersect with traditional collecting, allowing experts to analyze coins at levels of detail that were once impossible, revealing tiny imperfections, die markers, and surface characteristics that can confirm a coin's authenticity and rarity. And yet, even with these advanced tools, there is still an element of mystery, because not every coin has been examined, not every collection has been explored, and not every rare variety has been identified, and that leaves open the tantalizing possibility that some of the most valuable coins in existence are still sitting unnoticed, perhaps in a small box of old coins, perhaps in a collection that has been passed down through generations without ever being fully studied. And this idea has led to some of the most remarkable discoveries in numismatic history, where coins thought to be ordinary were later revealed to be incredibly rare, changing the lives of those who found them and reshaping the understanding of what is possible within a single series like the wee penny. And as these stories circulate, they create a ripple effect, inspiring more people to take an interest, to learn, to search, and to question, because the line between ordinary and extraordinary is often thinner than it appears. And nowhere is that more evident than in the subtle differences that define rare coins. And consider for a moment how many times a coin passes through your hands without a second thought, how easily it is spent, stored, or forgotten, and how unlikely it seems that something so small could carry such immense value. And yet, time and again, reality has proven that assumption wrong, revealing that value is not always tied to size or appearance but to rarity, history, and the unique circumstances of creation. And the 1917 wee penny embodies this principle perfectly, serving as a reminder that even the most unassuming objects can hold extraordinary potential. And as the narrative continues to build, it becomes clear that the true power of this story lies not just in the possibility of financial gain, but in the shift in perspective it creates, encouraging people to look more closely at the world around them, to find meaning and opportunity in places they might have previously ignored. And this shift is what transforms a simple coin into something much more significant, turning it into a symbol of curiosity, discovery, and the endless potential for hidden value. And as you reflect on this, it becomes almost impossible not to feel a sense of anticipation, a quiet excitement at the thought that something remarkable could be within reach, waiting to be uncovered. And that feeling is what drives the ongoing fascination with rare coins, what keeps collectors searching, studying, and sharing their discoveries, and what ensures that the story of the 1917 wee penny will continue to evolve, capturing the imagination of new audiences and inspiring future generations to take part in the search. And so, as this journey comes full circle, the question remains as powerful as ever: what if the next coin you examine is not just another piece of change but a hidden treasure? What if it carries a rare error, an unusual feature, or a history that sets it apart from all others? And what if that single discovery has the potential to change everything? Because while the odds may be uncertain, the possibility is real, and that is what makes this story so compelling, so enduring, and so impossible to ignore. So the next time you come across a 1917 wee penny, don't overlook it, don't dismiss it, take a closer look, because within that small copper coin could be a story waiting to be told, a mystery waiting to be solved, and perhaps even a fortune waiting to be discovered. And if this story has kept you engaged and opened your eyes to the hidden potential in everyday objects, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories that reveal how ordinary coins can hold extraordinary value beyond imagination. Next, 1957 1-cent wheat penny. What if one of the most common-looking coins you've probably seen countless times, a 1957 1-cent wheat penny, could secretly be worth up to $36 million? And the reason almost no one notices is because it looks nearly identical to millions of others, quietly blending into everyday change, hiding its true value behind a familiar design that most people never examine closely. And that's exactly what makes this story so powerful, because it suggests that Something extraordinary could already be in your possession right now without you even realizing it, sitting in a jar, tucked into an old wallet, or mixed in with loose coins that you've never taken the time to inspect. And as this idea begins to settle in, a deeper question emerges: how can something so ordinary become so valuable? And the answer lies in a fascinating combination of history, production quirks, and the unpredictable nature of minting errors that can transform a simple penny into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Because the 1957 wheat penny was produced in Denver during a time when coin production was highly efficient yet still vulnerable to subtle imperfections, and while millions of these coins were struck and circulated widely across the United States, only a tiny fraction carry the rare characteristics that collectors are willing to pay enormous sums to acquire. And these characteristics often go unnoticed by the untrained eye, which is why so many valuable coins remain hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to recognize what others have missed. And this is where the story becomes truly captivating, because it's not just about the coin itself, it's about the possibility, the idea that hidden value exists all around us, disguised as something ordinary, and that with a bit of curiosity and attention, anyone could uncover a piece of history that changes everything. And to understand why the 1957 wheat penny holds such potential, you have to look closely at how coins are made, because during the minting process, blank metal discs known as planchets are fed into high-speed presses where dies imprint the coin's design with tremendous force. And while this process is designed to produce uniform coins, it is not immune to error. And when something goes wrong, the result can be a coin that is unlike any other. For example, one of the most famous and valuable variations associated with this year is the double die error, where the design appears duplicated due to a misalignment during the die creation process. And in some cases, this doubling is so pronounced that it can be seen with the naked eye, especially in the lettering and date, creating a striking visual effect that immediately signals rarity to collectors. And coins with such dramatic errors are incredibly sought after because they represent a moment in the minting process where something went unexpectedly wrong, producing a result that cannot be easily replicated. And this uniqueness is what drives value in the world of coin collecting, because collectors are not just buying coins, they are acquiring pieces of history, tangible evidence of the complex processes and occasional imperfections that define coin production. And beyond doubled dies, there are other types of errors that can elevate the value of a 1957 wheat penny, including off-center strikes, where the coin's design is misaligned due to improper positioning during the strike, and while minor off-center errors are relatively common, extreme examples that retain key details such as the date and mint mark are exceptionally rare and highly prized. And then there are planchet errors, which occur before the coin is even struck, involving defects in the metal itself, such as cracks, laminations, or variations in composition, and these errors add another layer of uniqueness to a coin, making it stand out from the millions of standard examples. And when you combine these factors with the historical context of the 1950s, a period of economic growth and widespread coin circulation, you begin to see how a coin that was once considered ordinary could become extraordinarily rare over time. Because as coins are used, lost, or damaged, the number of surviving high-quality examples decreases, and those that remain in exceptional condition become increasingly valuable, especially when they also feature rare errors or unique characteristics. And this is where the market dynamics come into play, because the value of a coin is ultimately determined by what collectors are willing to pay, and when demand is high and supply is extremely limited, prices can reach astonishing levels, sometimes far beyond what most people would ever expect. And this is exactly what has happened with certain rare examples of the 1957 wheat penny, where intense competition among collectors has driven values into the millions, creating headlines and fueling further interest in the search for hidden treasures. And as these stories spread, they inspire more people to take a closer look at their coins, to learn about mint marks, errors, and grading, and to consider the possibility that they might be holding something valuable without even knowing it. And this sense of possibility is what keeps the story alive, because every coin represents a chance, a small but real opportunity to discover something extraordinary. And imagine the moment when someone finally recognizes a rare 1957 wheat penny, perhaps noticing the distinctive doubling in the design or an unusual alignment that sets it apart from others, and that moment of realization begins a journey that could lead to authentication, appraisal, and ultimately a life-changing outcome. And it's this combination of mystery, discovery, and potential reward that makes the story so compelling, because it taps into a universal sense of curiosity. The desire to uncover hidden value and to find something unique in a world where so much appears uniform and predictable. And as you think about this, it becomes difficult not to wonder about the coins you've encountered in your own life, how many you've overlooked, how many you've spent without a second thought, and how easily a rare piece could have slipped through your hands unnoticed. And that realization is both intriguing and motivating, encouraging you to pay closer attention, to examine details, and to approach everyday objects with a new perspective, because the difference between a common coin and a multi-million-dollar treasure can be as small as a slight misalignment, or a subtle doubling that most people would never notice. And yet those small details are exactly what collectors are searching for, what they study, what they value, and what they are willing to pay extraordinary amounts to acquire. And as the legend of the 1957 Dewey penny continues to grow, it serves as a powerful reminder that value is not always obvious, that rarity can be hidden in plain sight, and that sometimes the most incredible discoveries come from the most unexpected places. And this idea transforms the way you see coins, turning them from simple currency into objects of curiosity and potential, each one carrying its own story, its own history, and its own possibility. And as you move forward, perhaps you'll find yourself looking a little closer at the coins in your pocket, taking a moment to examine their details, wondering if one of them might be more than it seems. And that moment of curiosity is where every great discovery begins, because the search for hidden treasures is not just about luck, it's about awareness, attention, and the willingness to see beyond the surface. And while not every 1957 Dewey penny will be worth millions, the existence of even a few extraordinary examples is enough to keep the dream alive, to keep collectors searching, and to keep stories like this capturing the imagination of people around the world. And as this story continues to unfold, the possibility remains that somewhere out there, another rare example is waiting to be discovered, quietly circulating, overlooked and underestimated. And the only question is whether you will be the one to find it, whether you will take that extra moment to look closer, to question what you see, and to recognize the hidden value that others might miss. And just when it feels like you've uncovered every secret behind the 1957 Dewey penny, another layer begins to reveal itself, pulling you even deeper into a world where the smallest details can mean the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and one worth $36 million. Because what most people never realize is that even within known era categories, there are subvariations so rare that only a handful of examples may exist, and these micro differences often require expert-level examination to identify, which means that even today, coins with extraordinary value can remain hidden simply because no one has looked closely enough. And this is where the true tension builds, because it's no longer just about finding an old coin, it's about knowing what to look for, understanding the subtle signals that separate the ordinary from the extraordinary, and recognizing that a life-changing discovery could depend on something as small as the thickness of a letter, the spacing between numbers, or the angle of a strike. And as collectors continue to study the 1957 Dewey penny, they have identified specific markers that hint at rare die states, including faint doubling that may only be visible under magnification, slight distortions in the wheat stalk design on the reverse, or unusual surface textures caused by die fatigue. And each of these features tells a story about the moment that coin was created, a snapshot of the minting process captured in metal. And when those features align in just the right way, they create a coin that stands apart from millions of others, a coin that becomes not just collectible but legendary. And what makes this even more fascinating is that many of these rare coins were never intended to exist. They were the result of imperfections, of machines operating under pressure, of human oversight. And yet those imperfections are exactly what make them so valuable today, turning what was once considered a flaw into a defining characteristic. And as you begin to understand this, the entire concept of value starts to shift, because it becomes clear that rarity is not about perfection, it's about uniqueness, about the things that make an object different from all others, and the 1957 wheat penny is a perfect example of how that uniqueness can emerge from the most unexpected circumstances. And this realization leads to another intriguing question: how many of these rare coins are still out there, unnoticed, sitting in collections that have never been examined in detail, or circulating quietly among ordinary change, passed from person to person without anyone recognizing their significance? And while it's impossible to know the exact answer, history suggests that the number is not zero, because time and again, rare coins have been discovered decades after they were minted, often in places where no one thought to look. And each of these discoveries adds to the growing legend, reinforcing the idea that the search is far from over, that there are still hidden treasures waiting to be found. And imagine the moment when someone finally identifies one of these rare 1957 pennies, the realization that what they hold is not just another coin but a piece of history with extraordinary value, the careful process of verification, the anticipation as experts examine its features, and the eventual confirmation that it is indeed a rare and valuable specimen, a moment that can transform an ordinary day into something unforgettable. And this emotional journey is what keeps people engaged, what drives collectors to spend hours examining coins, learning about minting processes, and refining their ability to subtle differences, because the reward is not just financial, it's the thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of uncovering something that others have overlooked, and the knowledge that you have found something truly unique. And as you reflect on this, it becomes clear that the story of the 1957 wheat penny is not just about one coin or even one type of error, it's about a broader principle, the idea that value can be hidden in plain sight, that extraordinary things can exist within the ordinary, and that recognizing them requires a combination of curiosity, knowledge, and attention to detail. And this principle extends beyond coins, influencing the way you see the world around you, encouraging you to look closer, to question assumptions, and to remain open to the possibility that something remarkable might be right in front of you. And as this mindset takes hold, even the simplest objects begin to feel different, more significant, more full of potential, because you understand that beneath the surface, there may be stories waiting to be discovered. And in the case of the 1957 wheat penny, those stories are still unfolding, shaped by each new discovery, each new analysis, and each new collector who joins the search. And as the demand for rare coins continues to grow, driven by both passion and investment, the value of these unique pieces is likely to increase even further, making the possibility of finding one even more compelling. And while the odds may be slim, they are not impossible. And that is what makes this story so powerful, because it reminds us that opportunity does not always announce itself, it often hides quietly, waiting for someone to notice. And the next time you come across a 1957 wheat penny, you may find yourself looking at it differently, examining its details, considering its history, and wondering if it might be something more than it appears. And in that moment, you become part of the story, part of the ongoing search for hidden value, part of a tradition that has captivated collectors for generations. And whether or not you ever find a rare coin, the act of searching itself becomes meaningful, a way of engaging with history, craftsmanship, and the endless possibilities that lie beneath the surface of everyday objects. And as this journey continues, the legend of the 1957 wheat penny remains as compelling as ever, a symbol of hidden potential, a reminder that rarity can exist where you least expect it, and an invitation to explore the world with a sharper eye and a more curious mind. And as the story pushes even further, it begins to reveal something even more compelling about the 1957 wheat penny, something that transforms it from just another rare coin into a symbol of hidden opportunity. Because the more you learn about how these coins were made, handled, and distributed, the clearer it becomes that the journey of each individual penny is unpredictable, shaped by countless variables that determine whether it survives, whether it is noticed, and whether its true value is ever realized. And this unpredictability is what keeps the mystery alive, because even though experts have studied these coins for decades, there is still no complete record of every rare example that exists, meaning that somewhere, perhaps in a place no one has thought to look, there could be a 1957 wheat penny with extraordinary features quietly waiting to be discovered. And that idea alone is enough to create a sense of anticipation that builds with every coin you encounter, because now every penny is no longer just a piece of currency, it is a possibility, a question waiting to be answered, and as collectors continue to analyze known examples, they have discovered that some of the most valuable coins are not just defined by a single error, but by a combination of factors that align in a very specific way, such as a strong double die paired with an off-center strike or an unusual planchet flaw, creating a coin that is truly one of a kind, and these combinations are incredibly rare because they require multiple things to go wrong during the minting process at the exact same moment, which is why coins with such characteristics are often considered the ultimate prize, commanding attention from the most serious collectors and driving values to astonishing heights. And yet, despite all this knowledge, there remains a gap between what is known and what is possible. Because not every coin has been examined with the level of detail required to identify these features, and that means that some rare coins may still be hiding in plain sight, overlooked simply because no one has taken the time to look closely enough. And this is where the story becomes deeply personal, because it suggests that the next discovery does not necessarily belong to a professional collector or an expert. It could belong to anyone, someone who decides to take a closer look, to question what they see, and to explore the possibility that something ordinary might actually be extraordinary. And imagine the moment when that realization begins, when you pick up a 1957 Dewey penny and notice something unusual, perhaps a slight doubling in the lettering, an unexpected shift in the design, or a texture that seems different from other coins, and that small moment of curiosity leads you to investigate further, to compare it with known examples, to seek expert opinion, and gradually, the possibility starts to grow that you might be holding something rare, something valuable, something that has gone unnoticed for years, and that process, from curiosity to confirmation, is what makes coin collecting so captivating, because it combines observation, knowledge, and a bit of luck in a way that few other pursuits can match. And as these stories of discovery continue to emerge, they reinforce the idea that hidden treasures are not just a thing of the past, they are still out there, waiting to be found. And each new discovery adds to the legend of the 1957 Dewey penny, making it more intriguing, more desirable, and more valuable. And as demand increases, so does the intensity of the search, with collectors around the world examining coins with greater precision, using advanced tools and techniques to uncover details that were once impossible to see. And yet, even with all this technology, the human element remains essential, because it is curiosity, attention, and persistence that ultimately lead to discovery. And this is what makes the story so relatable, because it is not just about coins, it is about the idea that anyone can find something extraordinary if they are willing to look closely enough. And as you begin to adopt this mindset, the way you see coins changes completely. No longer are they just small pieces of metal, they become objects of interest, each one carrying the potential for discovery. And this shift in perspective is powerful, because it turns an everyday activity into something meaningful, something exciting, something full of possibility. And as the story of the 1957 Dewey penny continues to unfold, it serves as a reminder that value is not always obvious, that rarity can be hidden beneath the surface, and that sometimes the most incredible discoveries come from the most unexpected places. And this idea extends beyond coin collecting, influencing the way you approach the world around you, encouraging you to look deeper, to question assumptions, and to remain open to the possibility that something remarkable might be right in front of you. And in the end, that is what makes this story so enduring, so compelling, and so impossible to ignore, because it speaks to a universal truth, that hidden value exists all around us, waiting to be discovered, and the only thing standing between you and that discovery is the willingness to take a closer look. And the next time you come across a 1957 Dewey penny, remember that it might not be just another coin, it might be a piece of history, a rare anomaly, and possibly a fortune waiting to be uncovered. So keep searching, keep questioning, and if this journey into hidden coin treasures has kept you engaged and made you see ordinary change in a completely new way, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories that reveal how everyday coins can hold extraordinary value beyond imagination.